Shalom, this is Rabbi Mark Angel at the Institute for Jewish Ideas and Ideals. Thanks very much for joining us. We received an interesting question, which many people think about in the course of their lifetime. The question relates to an individual who says, I pray better at home when I'm alone rather than when I pray in the synagogue. Is it permissible for me to fulfill my obligations of prayer by praying in private rather than going to synagogue? The actual answer to that question is twofold. On the one hand, it's a virtue, it's a wonderful thing to find spiritual satisfaction when we pray. And if we find that we pray at home with great spiritual satisfaction and meaning and fulfillment, that's wonderful. We should certainly pray at home. But the second part of the answer is no, we do not fulfill our obligation in full by praying at home. We are supposed to pray in a minyan and preferably in a synagogue where there are other people to pray with, in spite of the fact that we might not consider ourselves to reach the highest level of spirituality in that kind of setting where there are other people. Nonetheless, the obligation of the halacha is that we pray as a community. So there really are two functions in prayer. One is the private prayer, the private spiritual endeavor to reach out to the Lord. And the second one is praying together as a community. Those two are separate dimensions, and both of which are extremely important. One should not preclude the other. Even if we pray in synagogue regularly, we should still engage in spiritual meditation and in prayer on our own. And even if we find that praying on our own is very satisfactory and very good, nonetheless, we should not avoid attending synagogue. The Gemara in Brachot on page 6a tells us as follows: Tanya, Abba Binyamin Omer, Ein tefillah shel adam nishmat ela b'beit haknesset. Abba Binyamin, the rabbi, taught us that the sound of a person's prayer is not heard except in the synagogue. Now, why would he say such a dramatic statement? Of course, God hears our prayers wherever we pray. But he emphasized this to remind us that the purpose of our prayer is not merely to have a personal ego trip and a feeling of personal satisfaction, but rather to come together as a kahal, as a community, to raise our voices as symbols of the entire Jewish community as we come before God. And public prayer is the vehicle for which to do that. The Gemara further on in Barachot on page 8b tells a story about Rabbi Nachman, who was accustomed not to go to synagogue very much, and his friend Rabbi Yitzchak told him, "Why don't you go to pray in the synagogue?" And he answered, "It's difficult, it's inconvenient, whatever." Rabbi Yitzchak prevailed upon him to realize that one's prayers should be said in conjunction with a community. When we pray in a synagogue, we not only give strength to the whole kahal and to the others who are praying, but we also derive strength from knowing that we're in the presence of others who are sharing our commitments and our values. So therefore, the answer is yes, we should engage in personal spiritual meditation and prayer on our own, if that gives us fulfillment. But no, we're not allowed to use that as a replacement for public prayer. We should definitely make it an effort to pray in a minyan, to find spiritual satisfaction in a minyan, and to let the rest of the community know that we're part of the community, that we come together as a kahal to pray to God for ourselves, for our communities, for our families, for all of the people of Israel, and for all good people everywhere. So I hope this has been something for you to think about. I hope we'll see you in synagogue more often. The more often, the better. And you'll find that the more you pray in a public setting with a synagogue, in spite of any diversions that might bother you and people talking and other confusion, nonetheless, when all is said and done, praying in a synagogue with a kahal does give added spiritual strength and does give strength to yourself and to the community at large. I hope this has been helpful to you, and we welcome you to visit our website at jewishideas.org to learn more about the Institute for Jewish Ideas and Ideals, which fosters an intellectually vibrant, compassionate, and inclusive Orthodox Judaism. Chazak, chazak, best wishes to all.